Lewis, can you tell us what is the difference between Jesus and Christ?
For me to answer that question, I have to explain it in time. So Jesus is a spirit being, a fractured part of the mind, no different to the rest of us. In his countless incarnations, he started to realize or self-realize what he is. And eventually when he incarnated as the man we know as the historical biblical Jesus, he came through with a highly awakened consciousness already. And that was obvious in the way that he was teaching at the age of 13 at the temple already. Remember, Jesus was raised as an Essenic Jew. Essenic Jews were the mystical Jews. They lived in rural communities. They practiced things like meditation, contemplation. They would go out into the desert and meditate. They would reflect upon the self. They studied, or it's said that they studied practices such as Kabbalah. And so Jesus was very much a man that in the process of self-realization, in the process of self-inquiry, fully self-realized and realized that he was the dreamer, that he was the Son of God that had fallen asleep and dreamt up the entire universe. And that he is an aspect, a single character, a single activity in the mind of the dreamer, as we all are. So Jesus woke up to the realization, as he said, I and the Father are one. He realized the self, the soul or self that is made from the same essence, created from the same essence as that which is God. God being the universal mind, the mind which is the creator of everything. Before the beginning of the universe, there was God. God, for another wonderful word, is infinite light, infinite peace, infinite joy, infinite unconditional love. And God's creation, his sonship, is the extension of God, which is pure light. Light is, let's say, light cells, and every sun is a cell. And it was a singular son of God that fell asleep and dreamt up the entire universe. He dreamt up the entire universe because he forgot what he was. When he fell asleep in the dream, he fell asleep in a dream of darkness. He fell asleep into a dream of nothingness. And in the Bible, there's this, in Genesis 3, there's a verse, God says, let there be light. God, realizing one of his sons is asleep, he speaks into the son's dream. He speaks his spirit, his Holy Spirit, into his son's dream. He speaks the light into his son's dream. And he says, return to me. You're simply sleeping. And what has appeared to be 16.4 billion years, the creation of the universe until we become sentient being, is the awakening of God's Son. And so 2,000 years ago, one single aspect, Jesus, awakes to the realization, I'm dreaming, I'm the Son of God. And he tried to demonstrate through his own life, through the countless miracles, because as you realize you're dreaming, you realize that space-time matter isn't real. So you can change, manipulate in what appears to be a miracle, space-time matter. So he would just simply go within, he would say a prayer of gratitude, and you would see the person healed, and healing would take place. He would walk on water, realizing it's not real. So whether it's land or water, it's all space-time and matter. So he has the ability to manifest and manipulate matter at will because it's in the dream. Just like when you're dreaming at night, you're able to change your dream. If you're awake, lucid dreaming, you're able to change the dream in your favor. Jesus was able to do this. And so what Jesus became, he becomes Christ. Another word for Christ is anointed, and anointed is another word for awakened or lit. You know, you anoint a candle, you anoint a lamp. In other words, you light the lamp. So Jesus becomes the awakened part of the mind. And so when he was crucified, he was able to resurrect his body because he's awake. He realizes death isn't real, and he demonstrates resurrection. And then a couple of days later, according to the Bible, he then ascends. He dissolves his body and ascends in the clouds, meaning he simply just disappears and becomes the awakened part of the mind, the Christ mind. So Jesus is the man, Christ is the awakened self. Once Jesus, ascends into heaven, in other words, ascends into the awakened part of the mind, Jesus dissolves and becomes Christ. So right now, as we stand here, there is no more Jesus other than the historical figure. Jesus has now become Christ, the awakened part of the mind. And all those that awaken, all the saints, all the holy people that awaken to the realization that they and God are one, just like Ramana Maharishi did, or Papa G, the teachings of Rupert Spira, the I amness. As we awaken into the I am, the Father and I are one. I am the self, which has dreamt this entire thing up. As I realize I am, I join with the Christ mind. So when your time in this earth comes to an end, in whenever it happens to be, and you awaken to the self in this lifetime, you then join with the office of the Christ, or the Christ mind. The identity dissolves. You don't return to the spirit world as a separate entity, as a separate spirit being. You return to the awakened part of the mind. The first dream, the spirit world dream, dissolves for you, and you become the light, which then is then infused into the rest of the fractured selves. And that's why what you're seeing today as new children are born, they're born with higher and higher awakened consciousness, because as more of the mind awakens, the more of the mind becomes Christ. Awakened and Christ means the same thing. And so once you become awakened, there's a dissolving of the separate entity. There's first a dissolving of the separate body mind in the incarnation experience. And once this body appears to die and you would return to the spirit world, if you haven't awoken, you'll go back to the spirit world as a separate spirit identity with the self infused in that. Once the self is fully realized, the spirit identity dissolves and you return to the Christ mind and join with the Christ, where there is no more you and a Jesus. There is simply Christ, the awakened part of the Son. The Son is realizing that he is the dreamer, and he's realizing that he is a son of God. That God only has one son. There's simply one dreamer dreaming up the entire universe. People then say to me, those that study the Course in Miracles, but how come Jesus channeled the book to Helen Schuchman? Well, the Christ channeled the book, spoke to Helen Schuchman, and introduced itself with some as a name that she could identify as Jesus, because Helen Schuchman would not have understood the concept of Christ. And the Course in Miracles then takes you through a phase where it appears like Jesus is talking to you, then it's the Christ addressing you, then it's the internalization of the experience, and then it's the Holy Spirit pulling us into the self-awareness, the awareness of the I amness, the I am the self. And so Holy Spirit is God's Holy Spirit in the dream that the Christ mind is one with. The Holy Spirit, God's Holy Spirit, is the energy that gives life to everything, and therefore is the energy of the Christ mind, which is calling us all from within to return to the awareness of being aware, to the awareness of I am, to the awareness of the self. So to wrap up, Jesus was the historical man who ascended in consciousness and becomes Christ. He becomes the awakened part of the mind, and that is what calls us all to awaken and join and realize there is only one dreamer. God only has one son, and that is collectively all of us.